I find the West really interesting. It didn't go exactly as how we expected it to play out. Several teams look to be contenders again this season. Wendy, I'm going to come back to you on this. Who do you feel like should be the favorites in the West next season?
Molly, you are so right. This next month is going to be so fascinating for some of these Western teams that have big things going on in this offseason. And because everybody is so tightly packed, individual moves that happen in the next few weeks could very well determine the title next year. I mean, it was right about this week last year where the Kristaps Porzingis trade started getting going. And arguably, that was one of the biggest moves that happened in the whole NBA last year. So my pick on this question is the Nuggets. I think the Nuggets are still very formidable. I think if the Nuggets had reached the finals against the Celtics, I think we'd still be working the NBA Finals right now. I think that series is a 7-game series. But I also want to point out that the Nuggets have some stress sitting on their plate. Every team has some stress, but the Nuggets have some stress sitting on their plate over the next couple of weeks. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. He has a player option for $15 million that he can pick up for next year by the end of the month. He is widely expected to turn that down and become an unrestricted free agent. The Nuggets are under a significant amount of pressure to keep him, and that's because that after they lost Bruce Brown and Jeff Green in free agency last summer, they did not have any of their young players really step up over the development process this year and present themselves as an alternative starter. Now, if Kentavious Caldwell-Pope walks, and I'm going to tell you right now, I can think of 8 to 10 teams that would instantaneously want him, all of them contenders. Not all of them can pay him more money than the Nuggets would be able to, but certainly several will make him significant offers. You could say that Christian Brown could step up into that role, but then that creates a hole behind him. The Nuggets have got to get Kentavious Caldwell-Pope locked down, and it's probably going to cost them a lot of money, especially into the luxury tax, and I don't think they have much of a choice other than to pay it. And so it's not a headline in the NBA free agency in the next couple of weeks, but if you're asking me about Denver, they're a contender if they bring back that starting five, which for most of the season was the best starting five in the league. The other thing I'm going to say is they've got to get a Jamal Murray extension done. Murray has 1 year left on his contract. He's not a free agent. He elected not to extend last summer. They need to get that done. And, because they need to make sure they have Murray and Jokic into the future. They need to get Jamal Murray in a place where he believes he's comfortable. I would assume that's with a 4-year max offer. He could wait another year. He doesn't have to sign it now, but he's going into play for the Olympics for Canada. The Canadians are strong candidates to medal if he is on that team. I would suspect he may want to get that settled before he goes over to France and plays. So the Nuggets are my answer, but let's see where they are on July 15th.
Minnesota Timberwolves for me.
Yeah.
Minnesota Timberwolves and AntMan. I'm looking at those guys, and I'm looking at AntMan, who we say is the closest thing to MJ on and off the basketball court. If you look at what the Boston Celtics were talking about when they got the championship this year, the pain of the loss, the pain of the disappointment the last couple of years, Minnesota has felt that pain. They have felt the pain of the loss. They have felt the pain of the disappointment. If AntMan is truly the heir to Michael Jordan, if he is truly that type of guy, that pain will drive him. That
Do you
pain
think
will
that
keep him up.
narrative changed, though? Because we were leading up to it, but then once they finally lost, did you feel like that narrative still continues, that he could be the next Michael Jordan?
I do. Yes, definitely. He's still young, too, and he still has time. I still think he has time to grow. But what will they get from Cat? That is the answer. Will Cat be the Cat that they need him to be? Because if Cat was the Cat they needed him to be, then we could be having a completely different conversation about who wins that series against Dallas. So my question is, if Cat is the Cat they need to be, then I like Minnesota to be in the finals next year, because they will be driven and they will be up at night, sleepless because of that pain of losing. That's what drives you.
Golly, those are two great choices. For the sake of the discussion, I want to toss in a third, but I actually believe that it's going to be the Nuggets that should be favored. I think the Nuggets are now experiencing sort of the same thing we did to Dallas. Yes, this year was a difficult run, but I think it reiterates how challenging it is to become a dynasty or to run it back, right? Like, they had a monster target on their back. The T-Wolves were playing fantastic. They don't get it done this year. But essentially, if they can protect their core, I'm old enough to remember last year the way we talked about this team, like in terms of their window being open. And so I just think that there's an experience there that you kind of just can't get until you get it. But I'm with you in terms of the Wolves being right there. I think OKC might be one of these teams that surprises us and does it before they hit prime of your career age, since they are such a young group. To me, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams are the closest duo we have when you talk about pairs to compare a guy to what we've seen from Tatum and Brown. But for me, for this question, I'm going back to the Nuggets because I still think Nikola Jokic is that dominant in the league.
Okay.
Wanna try to boast at what I look like. Think I'm gonna try to wear, I pull up all brains. Jimmy with the heat, I'm on fire. It's 88 over here,